Hi there, this is Al 24 News, live from Algiers. Coming up next in our World News program. President Vladimir Putin launched exercises by Russia's strategic nuclear missile forces today, Saturday. This comes after his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden said Moscow could attack Ukraine within days. The pro-Russian separatists began evacuating civilians from the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine, and Washington warned that the escalation in the region was part of a Russian plan to justify the attack. Plus, after 3 weeks of protests and blockades in Ottawa, police began arresting protesters in a bid to break the siege of Canada's capital by truckers angry over the country's COVID-19 restrictions. And Storm Eunice, an Atlantic storm, hit northwestern Europe with record winds of up to 190 kilometers per hour. Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune is on a visit to Qatar at the invitation of Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Thank you for joining us. So we start with the Russian-Ukrainian crisis. As part of this, President Vladimir Putin launched exercises by Russia's strategic nuclear missiles forces today. This comes after his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden said Moscow could attack Ukraine within days. More with Nabil Khazini.
With Russian troops amassed north and east and warships in the south, today, Russian President Vladimir Putin launched exercises by strategic nuclear missiles forces. But still, Moscow denies any intention to invade Ukraine, while Washington sees the Russian troops near Ukraine's border as a clear step for an invasion in the coming days.
We have reason to believe the Russian forces are planning to and intend to attack Ukraine in the coming week, in the coming days. We believe that they will target Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, a city of 2.8 million innocent people.
In Donetsk, an eastern Ukrainian city, a mass evacuation of civilians by buses into Russia has begun. The region is under control of separatists, who say they plan to evacuate around 700,000 people. Some sees the separatists as being part of a false flag operation. So, what is really their role in the crisis? Talking to AL24 News, Professor Valentin Yakushik expressed his opinion on the matter.
There are two regions in the east of Ukraine controlled by separatists who have full-fledged support from Russia. Now it seems that Russia is mirroring the West and giving some impulses, some advices to separatists to act in the same provocative way.
The situation in Ukraine is still fuzzy. Diplomatic efforts are rising day after day as being the best and peaceful way to avoid any more escalation in tension and maybe a possible war.
On the other hand, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived at the Munich Security Conference, where he called on the West to save his country from Russian invasion amid warnings from the United States that the Kremlin will take advantage of Zelensky's absence before returning to Kiev. Hossein Berkane reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson in Munich and stated that his country is interested in peace. Zelensky asked also for specific support from the United States, which is military support, after U.S. President Biden said last night that he was convinced that Putin decided to invade Ukraine and that the operation could happen in the coming days. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, for her part, stated that the United States and its allies would impose large and unprecedented economic measures against Russia if it attacked Ukraine, and added that national borders should not be changed by force.
We have prepared together economic measures that will be swift, severe, and united. We will impose far-reaching financial sanctions and export controls. We will target Russia's financial institutions and key industries. And we will target those who are complicit and those who aid and abet this unprovoked invasion.
In a related context, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO stressed that there is still time for Russia to reverse its decision to war in Ukraine. The alliance added that Russia should know very well the extent of the repercussions that will occur if it invades Ukraine.
Still with the same story, the pro-Russian separatists began evacuating civilians from the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine, and Washington warned that the escalation in the region was part of a Russian plan to justify the attack. Hussam Birken has more details.
Tensions prevail in two separatist Ukrainian regions amid calls for the civilian population to leave for Russia, at a time when the West accuses the Kremlin of preparing to invade Ukrainian territory amid categorical denials from Moscow. In a video, Denise Poshelin, who runs the pro-Russian Donetsk People's Republic, said that a large and concentrated departure of the population towards the Russian Federation is being organized.
As of today, February, the 18th mass centralized evacuation of the population to the Russian Federation has been organized. Women, children, and the elderly are to be evacuated first.
Pushelin expected that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky would soon announce his order to launch a military attack on the Donbas region. The separatist officials announced that the Ukrainian army was preparing to launch an offensive with the aim of invading their areas located in the Ukrainian Donbas region.
I call on civilians who are not mobilized or involved in the maintenance of infrastructure to leave for Russia as soon as possible.
The authorities of the Russian Rostov region declared a state of high alert due to the evacuation of civilians there.
To another story, and after 3 weeks of protests and blockades in Ottawa, police began arresting protesters in a bid to break the siege of Canada's capital by truckers angry over the country's COVID-19 restrictions. Sofiane Kinturi has more.
On Friday, police began detaining protesters in an attempt to end the 3-week siege of Canada's capital by truckers protesting the country's COVID-19 limitations. According to authorities, several demonstrations surrendered and were taken into jail. Some people were spotted in handcuffs, being escorted away.
Overnight and into today, we've begun to harden the perimeter around the protests. We're installing fencing and other barriers throughout the area.
The Ottawa Police Service said 100 persons had been detained. By the evening, a variety of charges, including mischief.
We are in control of the situation on the ground and continue to push forward.
Bell lamented that ongoing demonstration is not representative of Canada's capital, especially on holiday weekend celebrating Family Day.
The secured area includes almost 100 checkpoints that will have police presence to ensure that those seeking entry to that secure area for an unlawful reason, such as joining a protest, cannot enter the downtown core.
According to police, at least 21 cars, some if not all, of which were reportedly used to anchor demonstrators downtown, had been removed. Authorities claimed that constructed, protected area where public gatherings temporarily restricted as they proceeded to force demonstrators away from downtown.
Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune is on a visit to Qatar at the invitation of Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. The Algerian presidency said in a statement the visit aims to bolster the brotherly ties between the two countries and boost bilateral cooperation. During his visit, Tebboune will also participate in the 6 gas-exporting countries Forum Summit of Heads of States and Government in Doha. To Palestine now, where the Zionist police dispersed the protesters in Sheikh Jarrah, the occupied neighborhood of East Al-Quds, where demonstrators took to the street to support Palestinians facing eviction by Zionist settlers. Zahra Farjani.
The Zionist occupation forces assaulted on Friday afternoon Palestinian citizens and supporters as they were rallying in the East Al-Quds neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah. Dozens of demonstrators took to the street to support the Palestinian families who are threatened with eviction of their homes. In the neighborhood, the entity police launched a series of arrests that led to violence clashes.
We, God willing, are steadfast. They insulted us, beat us, our women and our children as well. Half of Sheikh Jarrah's youth is imprisoned.
I think Ben Gvir has been leading the terrorist attacks that have been happening here against the local Palestinians, and he should be punished, but I don't think that will happen. I mean, this whole state is based on colonialism, and they don't really care about what's happening to the Palestinians, and we can see it clearly in front of us.
For 8 days, the families in Sheikh Jarrah have been exposed to assaults and provocations by extremist Zionist settlers and police forces. The clashes witnessed the visit of the far-right Knesset member Itamar Ben Gvir, who is known for his statement against the Palestinians, in which he announced the transfer of his parliamentary office to the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood to support the Zionist settlers. The move was described by the Palestinian Authority as provocative and escalates the situation.
These Zionist assaults are a continuation of the series of ongoing crimes committed in all the occupied Palestinian territories against our Palestinian people, whether by occupation army or by settlers.
Residents of Sheikh Jarrah say the intensified Zionist police and settler presence in the area come to lay the ground for the Palestinian families' imminent forced displacement next month.
The WHO announced it will work with 6 African countries to provide messenger RNA technology to produce vaccines in Africa. Miriam Zian has more details.
The World Health Organization revealed the first 6 African countries to get the technology needed to produce mRNA vaccines in the latest move to enhance manufacturing in Africa. The worldwide mRNA technology transfer hub was established to ensure that low and middle income nations had all of the necessary operating procedures and know how to mass produce their own vaccines in international standards. The announcement came at a time when Africa has been struggling to get enough immunization, with only 17% of the African population receiving at least 1 shot, a ratio that pales in comparison to the wealthier nations. Given that Pfizer, BioNTech and Moderna all deny the WHO request to share their technology, the hub setup is crucial, as only 1% of the vaccinations used in Africa are currently produced in the continent.
More than 80% of the population of Africa is yet to receive a single dose. Much of this inequity has been driven by the fact that globally vaccine production is concentrated in a few mostly high-income countries.
The EU Commissioner, Ursula von der Leyen, expressed optimism about the technology transfer's potentials and stated she was certain this was the right path. The WHO said it will work with the first 6 nations to build a training so that they could begin producing vaccines as soon as possible. The South African hub is already producing mRNA vaccines at laboratory scale and is currently scaling up towards a commercial scale.
U.S. State Department spokesperson told Western sources that his country has stopped around $160 million U.S. aid to Burkina Faso after determining the January ouster of President Roch Boukari constituted a military coup. Eight soldiers and 57 terrorists were killed in clashes at a rebel base in northern Mali. Friday's fighting followed an air raid and erupted just a day after France and its allies announced their military withdrawal from the African country. The World Health Organization said Africa is witnessing another outbreak of polio virus after Malawi has declared a case was detected in a young child in the capital, the first case of wild polio virus in the continent in more than 5 years. Islam Sid has more details.
According to the World Health Organization, the first wild polio virus case in Africa in more than 5 years has been discovered in a small kid in Malawi. Poliomyelitis, or the polio virus, is vastly contagious and highly infectious that targets the spinal cord and causes paralysis in children.
Yes, one case of polio is enough to make us declare this a public health emergency. And it's not only Malawi. I mean, the whole continent never had any polio at all. And the fact that we've identified it here, we never know. Considering that's also imported.
According to laboratory examination, the strain is linked to one that has been circulating in Pakistan's Sindh province, where polio is still a problem. The WHO said it was assisting Malawi in completing a risk assessment and an outbreak response, which included further inoculation.
Following the detection of wild polio in Malawi, we're taking urgent measures to forestall its potential spread thanks to a high level of polio surveillance in the continent and the capacity to quickly detect the virus. We can swiftly launch a rapid response and protect children from the debilitating impact of this disease.
Until a vaccine was discovered in the 1950s, the disease was widespread all throughout the world, though it remained out of reach for many poorest countries in Asia and Africa until a big effort in recent decades.
17 people were burnt to death when a tanker caught fire on the Basi Lagos-Ibadan expressway. The Federal Road Safety Commission, which confirmed the incident, said it occurred around 5 a.m. by the Izara Bridge stretch of the highway, with 2 vehicles and a nondescript tanker involved. Storm Eunice, an Atlantic storm, hit northwestern Europe with record winds of up to 190 kilometers per hour. The storm killed at least 9 people and knocked out power for tens of thousands. Nabil Khazini has more details.
Impressive images from many parts of northern Europe. Strong wind which surpasses 190 kilometers per hour. Uprooting trees and damaging roofs of many houses. While in Germany, in Hamburg, these ferries' windows were broken by the strong waves. Authorities announced red alerts, and England asked its citizens to stay at home. But some took the risk to film some unusual scenes for Eunice, the worst storm to hit Europe in 3 decades.
It's as they predicted, isn't it? Sure is howling.
Being on here now, I've never known it like this. No, it's quite bad, yeah.
The damage has unfortunately reached lives as well. 8 fatalities have been recorded in the UK, Ireland and the Netherlands. Railways blocked by falling trees. Many trips were delayed. The storm left no other solution except closing key roads. The storm also made it difficult to this pilot to land on the airport of Heathrow.
The disruption from an event of this magnitude may last for a couple of days while we clear up and sweep up and get everything back working. So there's going to be a lot of disruption.
More than 230,000 homes are still without power in the UK, and the weather is expected to remain stormy across large parts of Europe over the following days.
In Bolivia, demonstrators prevented the hospitalization of ex-president Yanin Anez, who is imprisoned since March 2021 on hunger strike since February the 9th, and whose hospitalization was ordered by a judge. Hundreds of supporters of the presidential party movement to socialism surrounded the prison, where the former head of state is calling her a killer, and she is not going out. A former Minneapolis police officer, Kim Potter, was sentenced to 16 months in prison for first-degree manslaughter in the death of Dante Wright during a traffic stop on the 11th of April 2021. The sentence has been very disappointing and not expected, according to the family of the victim. Sid Islam has more insights regarding this story.
A video brings back the murder case of Dante Wright killing by an officer who claimed seeking a taser instead of a gun. Kim Potter, former Minnesota police officer, was convicted and sentenced to 2 years behind bars of manslaughter after she shot the 20-year-old black driver during traffic stop in Brooklyn Center, a suburb of Minneapolis, in April 2021.
Kim, sit down. That you shall be committed to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for a period of 24 months. You shall serve 2/3 of that time, or 16 months in prison, and 1/3 on supervised release.
Wright family said they were very disappointed by the outcome, calling Kim Potter to face a maximum sentence of 15 years.
Kim Potter murdered my son, and he died April 11th. Today, The justice system murdered him all over again.
They were so tied up into her feelings and what's going on with her that they forgot about my son being killed.
On the other hand, Potter has faced Wright family with heartbroken, saying that she feels deeply sorry for their loss.
Katie, I understand a mother's love, and I am sorry I broke your heart.
Prosecutors first requested a sentence of 7 years in jail, a penalty under the state's guideline. Judge Regina Chu was well aware that the reduced sentence would be met with sadness by many members of the family and the community. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison urged the community to accept the judge's sentencing.
I don't ask you to agree with her decision, which takes nothing away from the truth of the jury's verdict.
Dante Wright died during a period of heightened tensions in Minneapolis, with the trial for George Floyd's murder taking place nearby.
And for more world news, let's follow this report by Zahra Farjani.
Rescuers boarded a blazing ferry off the coast of Greece and liberated 2 truck drivers who had been trapped on board for more than 15 hours, but hope for the 11 others who had gone missing had decreased. The crew dropped from a helicopter aboard the ship amid heavy clouds of smoke on Friday. Wildfires in Argentina's north have continued to burn more than 600,000 hectares, damaging farmland and harming protected animals and plants in the huge Ibera National Park, an important wetland region. Local officials have dispatched firemen, police officers and volunteers to combat 15 blazes that have raged over the region along the border with Paraguay. According to the National Archives and Records Administration, classified material was discovered in 15 boxes of White House papers housed at former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. The matter had been forwarded to the Justice Department. The agency's letter on Friday comes in the wake of multiple revelations regarding Trump's handling of sensitive and even secret material while he was president and after he departed the White House. In the United Kingdom, Boris Johnson has handed to the police his legal questionnaire following a request from Metropolitan Police to answer it regarding claims that he attended a Downing Street party during his first lockdown. Downing Street has previously said his responses will not be made public.
And now it's time to see how world's economy is going on in this report by Miriam Zian.
According to data from Gas Infrastructure Europe, underground gas storage facilities were 95.3% empty in Europe, which means that the continent is now left with only 4.7% of its gas reserve for the rest of the winter season. In comparison to last year, the volume of active cubic gas in storage facilities has decreased by 8.3 billion cubic meters. In total, 44.8 billion cubic meters have already been withdrawn from Europe's underground gas storage this winter. A Florida family is suing Tesla for an alleged fault that resulted in the death of a driver and passenger in a car accident last year. The vehicle had a defective and excessively unsafe suspension, according to the lawsuit filed by the driver's family in a Florida state court last week, which might cause loss of control under normal and predictable driving conditions. The plaintiffs are seeking more than $30,000 in damages from the automaker and the service manager, as it was accused of negligently checking the afflicted car. The United States overturned a week-long ban on Mexican avocado imports, which had been provoked by a threat against a food inspector and had blocked America's principal source of the fruit. The resolution also calls on the Michoacan government to adopt an operational security plan right away.
And now it's time to have a reminder of our main top stories. President Vladimir Putin launched exercises by Russia's strategic nuclear missile forces today, Saturday. This comes after his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden said Moscow could attack Ukraine within days. The pro-Russian separatists began evacuating civilians from the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine, and Washington warned that the escalation in the region was part of a Russian plan to justify the attack. After 3 weeks of protests and blockades in Ottawa, police began arresting protesters in a bid to break the siege of Canada's capital by truckers angry over the country's COVID-19 restrictions. Storm Eunice, an Atlantic storm, hit northern western Europe with record winds of up to 190 kilometers per hour. And Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune is on a visit to Qatar at the invitation of Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. That's it. Thank you for being with me. Bye for now.